you're going on a cruise, you definitely want to avoid these cruise port mistakes that have the potential, well, they can get you in a lot of trouble. There are scams to watch out for. These are definitely tips that you want to know. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website lifewellcruise.com. Welcome back to my channel. Now, we all know when we get off the cruise ship, we want to be careful. We want to have a really good time on excursions and when we are visiting some of the different ports of call, but none of us wants to be caught in a scam and a fraud, missing the ship, none of that. So I'm going to share all of the tips and the things that you definitely want to avoid in this video. Now, before I get started, I did want to mention that if you like this video, if you find it helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, then please do give it a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And of course, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Okay, let's get started. So the first one is pretty obvious, but it is to check, double check, and even triple check the time that you need to be back on board. This is really going to always be one of the most important things that you need to know when you get off in a cruise port. Now, something to really watch out for is, first of all, the time to get back on the ship may have changed from what you originally saw on the itinerary. At the same time, you're also going to notice that even if the ship is leaving, let's say at 5 p.m., the all aboard time is often 30 minutes before that for cruise passengers, so you'll need to get on the ship by 4:30. Now, what will be indicated on a sign as you disembark the ship, it's often on the cruise planner as well, but do make sure that you have that most recent information. What I usually do is I take a picture of that sign, and the reason I do that is because if I get a little bit OCD later on in the day and I think, oh my gosh, what is the time again? Do I remember? I have that picture in my phone, and that kind of helps me to calm down a little bit. Now, another thing to be really careful about is making sure that you are staying on cruise ship time. And what this really means is sometimes your cruise ship will be crossing into different time zones. You might be an hour or so off the time of the island. Now, in some cases, the cruise ship will have you turn your clocks so that you do actually arrive on the island and you're in their time. That is really kind of ideal because then you're not going to get confused. But in other cases, your ship time is going to be different than the port of call. That actually happened to us when we were in St. Lucia. It was okay because we did know it and we were with a very reputable tour provider, so everything went really well. But it is something to really watch out for. Now, what some cruisers do, which is very smart, is bring with them a simple wristwatch that they can wear, because sometimes those smartphones that we're all using, they can be pretty tricky, because as soon as you do maybe take them off airplane mode when you get into the island, they're going to switch automatically to that island time. Number 2, avoid disappointment by booking your cruise line shore excursions ahead of time, ideally before your cruise online. Now, if you do decide to do a private excursion, I'm going to talk about that later on in the video, but if you have a cruise line excursion that you do have in mind, well, there are 2 reasons to book it in advance when you see it online. One of them is the price actually might be higher on the cruise ship itself. I've seen this happen myself, so I know that it does happen on some cruise lines. The price will be higher once you get on the cruise ship. But the more important reason, I think, is that you avoid disappointment. Some cruise line excursions are going to sell out. So if you do have an excursion in mind, make sure you do book it early, book it before your cruise. Number 3, make sure that you bring some cash, and in particular, bring some small bills with you when you do get off in the ports of call. Now, when you're in the ports of call that are in the Caribbean, in Bermuda, in the Bahamas, well, and obviously in the United States, you can use US dollars. In most cases, these are really pretty happily accepted, even in Mexico. However, if you do go to certain ports of call, maybe you're in Canada, maybe you're in some of the different places in Europe, then you will want to check on if the local currency is used. In many cases it is, and you're going to find that you're going to have the better value if you do have money in the local currency. But what you really want to avoid is not having that small cash. Now, those small dollars are going to be useful when you might want to tip any of the shore excursion guides. Now, I actually looked this up on, as I was booking an excursion just the other day for an upcoming cruise that I have, and I looked up some information on the shore excursions on the cruise line website, and I was actually surprised to see that there were some tipping guidelines. So I never really noticed that before, but just something to mention is on this cruise line website, it did say that customary, and obviously this is still up to you, but is $2 a person for a shore excursion guide for a half-day tour, and $4 a person for a full day tour. And again, this is up to you, but it is still good to have those small dollar bills with you. Number 4, get comfortable with bargaining. Yes, in many of the ports of call, especially in the islands, bargaining is really expected, and this goes from the little souvenir places to even some of the bigger jewelry stores. It's just really expected. And if you are looking, let's say, at a necklace that might be, I don't know, they might even say that it's $800 at the beginning, that price may end up being $200 to $300 at the end. So it can make a really big difference. So maybe research your prices a little bit before you go, especially on those expensive items, but really expect that anywhere you go, even if you're on the beaches, oftentimes bargaining is really expected. So get a little bit comfortable with it. Number 5. Now this is a really important one. It is a scam to watch out for. And I don't mean this to disparage any of the different islands, any of the different countries, but these things have really happened. And basically what it is when you are using your credit card, maybe in a souvenir shop or anywhere else, be very careful that what you're being charged is in your currency. So maybe you have a credit card in US dollars or in Canadian dollars, whatever your currency is. Make sure that that is the currency that is being charged. And basically how the scam goes, and this is what happened actually to a Canadian tourist just about 4 years ago in Jamaica. There are many cases of this, so you can actually Google it and you'll find the stories, unfortunately. But what happened to this particular person is they were in a store. They bought apparently about $50 worth of souvenir type merchandise. But they did notice that $7,500 was being charged on their credit card. Apparently, when they inquired about it, according to them and the story that I did read, is that they were told, well, this was in Jamaican dollars, so the currency converter would bring it to $50. Well, when they got home and they checked on their credit card, they were actually charged $7,500. And apparently because they did put their PIN in and they did authorize it, apparently it was a case of sort of buyer beware. So be very careful of that. Make sure that when you are using your credit card that they are charging your actual currency. Number 6. Now this is, I guess, something to watch out for, but more something that you should just know and be aware of so that you can make an informed decision. Now, when you are on the cruise ship, you are going to have sort of shopping talks and even shopping experts on the cruise ship, which is kind of a good thing because they can let you know what are some of the items that are really recommended to buy in certain ports of call. I'm a bit of a shopper, so I do actually enjoy this. However, what they will do as well is they will let you know some of the recommended stores that they suggest that you do buy, maybe some of those brand name watches and some of those very expensive items. And oftentimes they will give you a card that you can go into the store, and it might be the business card of the shopping talk expert, or it might just be a card from the cruise line. And this is, they tell you so that you can be a bit of a VIP in the store, that they can know that you are coming. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, something that you should know is they actually do, from what I understand, they do get some money back, a bit of a kickback when you do go there, a bit of a commission. So this is what I have heard before. Please let me know if you've heard this as well, if you know this to be true. I'm not 100% sure. The good part is that they are a recommendation from the cruise line. So I guess if there is something wrong with the item, then you may have a bit of a recourse, but you might be better off just researching in advance some of the local stores that are in the area that people have shopped at for years and do highly recommend. Number 7. If you do book private excursions, there are some questions that you want to ask to make sure that you are protected. So one of them is, well, first of all, you need to know, how are you going to pay? Are you going to be paying for the excursion in advance, or are you paying a deposit and paying the balance when you do arrive in the island? Personally, I think that that is best. However, a question that you'll want to ask is, what happens if your cruise ship doesn't make it to the cruise port? Is there a refund? In some cases, people have found that they maybe haven't dealt with the most reputable vendor and there hasn't been a refund. And that definitely is something that can happen on cruises. Sometimes for weather or other reasons, the itinerary does change and you miss an island. So make sure you know that before you book your private excursion. Number 8. Always allow ample time to come back to the cruise ship. Now, something that I like to do, especially if I'm going off on my own when I do get off the cruise ship, is we might go to the beach or we may go somewhere else or even take a private excursion in the morning time. But we always make sure to get back near the cruise ship, well, for at least 2 even more hours before the cruise ship is going to depart. And the reason for this is because there can be different things that can happen that can delay you getting back to the ship. And of course, if you've watched videos like this, you know that the cruise ship will actually leave without you if you don't get back to the cruise ship on time. And this is in particular if you're not on a cruise line excursion. So if you do want to go off on your own, make sure that you allow, I'd say, 2 hours plus. And something to warn you about is when you do go maybe to your beach in the morning time or to your excursion, you might notice that the ride by taxi might only be 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes max. However, getting back to the cruise ship at the end of the day, that same ride can be an hour, can be 2 hours. If it's only one way going back and forth, there can be somebody that has a car problem or an accident. This can really be a major problem. I don't want to scare you, but I do want to warn you, make sure you're back near the cruise ship in time. You can always walk around, do some shopping, go to a bar in the cruise ship area if you still want to be in the island and you don't want to get back on the ship, but make sure of that. Number 9, there are 2 things to never do when you get off the cruise ship in at least most of the cruise ports of call that are in the Caribbean. And this could apply to elsewhere as well. But so the first one is don't bring certain foods off the ship. So usually dry, prepackaged foods are just fine. However, fruits and vegetables and even meats are not allowed. Fruits and vegetables in particular, and there have been cases of people getting fines. I know sometimes people get upset at the cruise line for it. They say that they weren't informed enough. It usually is on the planner. It's usually in the information. But honestly, I know a lot of us just don't look at all of the fine print all the time or all of the notifications. So just know this, don't bring any fruits and vegetables off the ship. It will result possibly in a fine, a very big problem. And the second thing to not do, especially in many Caribbean islands, is wear any camouflage clothing. This is actually illegal in some of the different Caribbean islands, apparently even in Barbados. I believe it's Grenada as well, but several of them. So just do yourself a favor. Personally, I just don't bring any camo clothing even onto a cruise ship. I don't even know if I have any camo clothing right now. I don't think I do. But in any case, I just wouldn't bring it, and I wouldn't really have my sons or my husband bring any camo clothing. It's just not worth it. Leave that stuff at home. And number 10 mistake that you don't want to make is forgetting to bring your shore excursion bag essentials. So yes, you want your sunscreen, you want your water bottles, you want to make sure you have your sun hat. There are a lot of essentials that you just want to make sure you have depending on what you are doing during the day. I have a video all about cruise port excursions and what you should pack, the essentials that you need. I'm going to leave that video right after this one so that you can check that out next. If you did enjoy this video, please do give it a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And please, of course, let me know what are some of the cruise port mistakes that either you've made or you think that people should avoid. Maybe you've seen some people miss the cruise ship. Please let me know in the comments below this video. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Bye for now and happy cruising.